So far, over 40 lawsuits have been filed in federal courts against President Trump's wave of executive actions. As the White House continues to stretch the bounds of executive authority, all eyes are on lawsuits surrounding Trump and Elon Musk's federal buyout offer. Today, a judge is set to rule on whether or not the move can go forward. Joining me now is the Hill's courts and legal reporter Zach Schonfeld with the latest on all of the legal battles surrounding the new administration. Zach, it's great to see you. I want to jump right into it. A federal judge is set to rule today on whether to block President Trump and Elon Musk's federal buyout offer, depending on the judge's decision. What type of legal precedent could this set going forward?
Hey, Julia, at this point, we're really still in the emergency stages of this case. So I think the judge has been approaching this knowing that this isn't going to be the final ruling on this matter, but this temporary ruling is going to have a big impact for the facts on the ground right now. And these tens of thousands of government workers that have already accepted this buyout offer. This was a buyout offer. The window was supposed to end last week for federal workers to accept this offer, but the judge had agreed to delay that deadline until 11:59 p.m. Eastern time tonight so we could first hold this hearing this afternoon. So today is the day when we expect the judge to start getting into the meat and potatoes of the plaintiffs' arguments here. These are government employee unions who argue that the Trump administration has been acting without legal authority. And then at the end of this hearing, we are expecting a ruling from the judge on whether he will continue to extend the deadline beyond tonight.
Yeah, a lot of government workers in limbo today, so we'll see what happens once this ruling is out and going forward. I want to stick with Elon Musk. He posted on X over the weekend calling on the judge who blocked DOGE's access to the Treasury Department to be impeached. While he obviously has the right to speak out, Zach, do you think this language undermines the public trust of judges, and where does that case stand now?
Well, Elon Musk certainly has a huge public megaphone. He's got tens of millions of followers on X, and I don't think it takes too much stretch of the imagination to believe that more people will probably end up seeing Elon Musk's criticism than actually reading the judge's ruling that was issued at about 1 a.m. Eastern time early Saturday morning here on the East Coast. This is a ruling that has been really drawing criticism from Republicans, even more so than the other unfavorable rulings that we've seen them get in recent days. This is a ruling that temporarily blocks not only Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency from accessing these critical Treasury Department systems that are used to dole out trillions of dollars worth of payments every year, but it also goes as far to block access for anyone who's not a civil servant. So actually, the Trump administration has been back in court today arguing that if you really take the language of that judge's order, it could even extend as far to say that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent won't have access to these systems because he himself is a political appointee. He's not a civil servant. So this is a battle that's continuing to play out, not only in the courtroom, but also with Elon Musk in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, well, sticking with DOGE, two new lawsuits were filed last night challenging DOGE's access to the Consumer Financial Bureau. The administration is actively looking at cracking down on the agency's activities. It seems like this agency is the latest to be targeted by DOGE. What do we know what DOGE is looking into, and could we see a similar ruling to DOGE's access that we saw with the Treasury Department?
Well, we could potentially see a similar ruling. This is just the latest in a line of cases challenging DOGE's access to various agencies. And these new lawsuits were filed on Sunday night as reports were coming out that Elon Musk and his team, the CFPB, was next. Elon Musk, in recent days, had actually tweeted out, rest in peace to the CFPB. So he's certainly not hiding, but there still are some unanswered questions in terms of what exactly are they doing at CFPB. We know reportedly that employees there have been told this week not to do any work. So it seems like as of now, the Trump administration is really trying to dismantle these agencies. So these lawsuits, although they're sparse on details, they're really just trying to get something in front of a judge to try to get some sort of order to block Elon Musk from moving forward, whatever it is he's trying to do.
Vice President JD Vance posted on X suggesting that judges don't have jurisdiction over the president's, quote, legitimate power. And President Trump had this to say yesterday aboard Air Force One. Let's take a listen.
When a president can't look for fraud and waste and abuse, we don't have a country anymore. So we're very disappointed with the judges that would make such a ruling. But we have a long way to go. We have to find all of the fraud that's going on. We have tremendous fraud, tremendous waste, and tremendous abuse.
We're seeing so many of these cases, so many of these rulings down the line. Zach, how are legal experts reacting to what President Trump said? Is there a fear we could see the White House try and use their authority to essentially circumvent the federal courts here?
I think that fear is existent for some legal experts out there. I've heard now a few people, bring up the age-old quote that is largely attributed to President Jackson when he challenged the Chief Justice, saying the Chief Justice has laid down his ruling, now let him enforce it. Now, obviously, we're not quite to that point yet in the Trump administration, but you've seen a lot of legal experts, particularly, on the left, raising concerns about some of this rhetoric, whether it be the president himself, Vice President JD Vance, Elon Musk, or their allies, that are really criticizing not only the decisions in these cases, sometimes the judges themselves, and it's left a lot of legal experts wondering how far will the Trump administration go, and will they actually enforce these court orders if they're not on favorable terms?
I want to switch gears a little bit. A third federal judge blocked Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. Will we see this case in front of the Supreme Court anytime soon, Zach?
Yeah, Julia, it seems like we're inching closer and closer to that each and every day. We're not there yet. There are now 9 lawsuits challenging this birthright citizenship order that would restrict citizenship from being given to babies born on U.S. soil if their parents are here illegally. Like I said, 9 lawsuits now going through the courts. We've seen a lot of the trial courts now hold some initial hearings, as you mentioned. We've now had 3 judges temporarily block this executive order. And really now we're starting to see the Trump administration bring these cases up the ladder. We've now seen them file their first appeal in one of these cases. That's a case that's arising out of Seattle. So at this point, we're now at the mid-level appeals court. So we're only 1 level below the Supreme Court. So not there yet, but it seems that we're getting closer by the day.
I want to switch gears to President Trump's executive orders, executive actions. So far, more than 40 lawsuits have been filed in federal courts against his executive actions, the president's. Many of those actions related to immigration and the restructuring of the federal government. At least 5 of those lawsuits have been blocked in court so far, or executive actions, I should say. What are the key cases that we should be looking out for that could set a precedent for President Trump and his authority?
Yeah, Julie, this has really been a flood of cases. You mentioned there over 40. My guess is if, we're having this conversation in 24 hours now, we'll probably be able to say over 50. We're just about to cross that milestone. There are really multiple lawsuits now being filed every day on almost any major executive action that we've heard in the headlines over the last few weeks from this administration. So we've been talking about some of the major cases. There is additional cases on immigration, on orders that are not the birthright citizenship, but other immigration orders. Also, a lot of cases on Trump's executive orders that relate to gender. So, for example, we've seen some litigation over his executive order that mandates that transgender women in federal prison be moved to male facilities. So it's truly been a chaotic scene in courthouses across the country with now, as I said, almost 50 lawsuits filed. It's a similar dynamic to what we saw during Trump's first term when there were also quite a lot of lawsuits filed there right at the beginning. But it's really a chaotic scene as we move through these cases.
Zach Schonfeld, you have your work cut out for you on your beat. It's certainly a busy time. Thank you so much for breaking it all down for us.
Thanks, Julia.
President Trump doubled down over the weekend over his plan for the United States to take over and redevelop Gaza. Now he's saying that under his plan, Palestinians would not have the right to return to the area after the proposed redevelopment. White House reporter Brett Samuels joins us all now to break it all down. Brett, it's great to see you. The Gaza Strip is home to over 2 million people. Where is President Trump suggesting all those people go after this redevelopment supposedly takes place?
Yeah, Julia, this is, probably the most controversial part of this proposed takeover and redevelopment of the Gaza Strip that President Trump has put forward, is this idea that he is saying that Palestinians who call the Gaza Strip home would essentially have to be relocated. And he has proposed that neighboring Arab nations like, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and other nations in that region would essentially take in these Palestinians and create space for them to resettle there while Gaza is being redeveloped, a project that he and his aides have said could take 10 to 15 years essentially to finish. So, there's been a significant amount of pushback from Arab allies, but that is sort of how Trump has laid out this controversial proposal.
And this is all coming as Hamas said on Monday morning that they will be delaying the next hostage release, saying that Israel has violated the conditions of the ceasefire. Brett, it's already a fragile situation. What is Hamas accusing Israel of? And are experts concerned that this could end the ceasefire early?
Yeah, like you said, Julia, it already was a very sort of tense and fragile situation. very tenuous, and essentially Hamas is accusing Israel of not sticking to the parameters of this ceasefire deal, which is supposed to be moving into phase 2 of this 3-phase deal. Part of the complication is that phase 2 calls for an end to fighting in Gaza and for Israel to withdraw forces. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and some of his supporters and advisors have essentially expressed skepticism about actually ending the war, because they say Hamas has not been completely wiped out and they don't feel that it's appropriate to fully sort of withdraw forces and end the fighting. So, certainly it was already a sort of fraught situation. It's becoming more fraught. Obviously, you throw in Trump's comments about redeveloping Gaza, that, adds another sort of layer of complications. So, certainly a very tense situation that we'll bear watching in the days to come.
I want to shift gears to immigration. The Trump administration is moving forward with the president's order to turn Guantanamo Bay into a holding facility for deported migrants. Trump ordered the facility to get ready for 30,000 people. Brett, what do we know so far about the preparations being made and who may be held there?
Yeah, so we've seen this get underway in the last couple of weeks, essentially, where you've had members of the military, including Marines, have made their way down to Guantanamo Bay to try and sort of begin preparations for setting up this facility, which, as you mentioned, President Trump directed that it be able to hold up to 30,000 migrants. What we've heard from officials is that this would hold, what they call sort of the worst, quote unquote, which is, violent criminals who are being deported, or criminals, or I should say migrants who are being deported, who their home countries they haven't arranged to have their home country accept them and have them repatriated yet. So they'll be held at Guantanamo Bay. In the interim, we saw Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, go down and visit Guantanamo Bay to see how things were coming along. And in the meantime, there's been about a dozen migrants who have been sent there to be held there, initially. So certainly we're expecting to see that activity ramp up. But, obviously a big sort of symbolic, given the reputation of Guantanamo Bay, symbolic sign of how the Trump administration is cracking down on immigration.
Certainly, we'll be watching, looking forward to seeing what's going to happen down at Guantanamo Bay and how it impacts the immigration debate. Brett Samuels, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Julia.
2 months after he allegedly gunned down the CEO of United Healthcare, legal defense donations are once again pouring in for Luigi Mangione. Donations for Mangione are now at nearly $300,000. The initial goal was around $200,000, but has since been raised to $500,000. News Nation's Caitlin Becker is outside of the jail in Brooklyn with what it all means for Mangione's defense.
Well, Blake, even before his arrest from day one, there was a lot of public support online for the alleged shooter, and that really ramped up once Mangione was taken into custody, and we're kind of seeing it happen again here. Now, he has 3 pending cases and a high-powered attorney, so it is going to be wildly expensive to defend himself. A lot of money has been donated so far, but he would need to accept the funds in order to use them. His lawyers would be the ones to coordinate with the people who run the fundraisers in order to get that money. Now, one such fund tells News Nation that his team has done just that. The fundraiser, organized by the December 4 Legal Committee, says that they've received contributions from over 10,000 individual donors nationwide. The group tells News Nation that Mangione's defense team has accepted the more than $290,000 that they've raised so far. They also shared a statement reportedly from Karen Friedman Agnifilo. Now, she's Mangione's lead defense attorney, and it states, quote, "Luigi is aware of the fund and very much appreciates the outpouring of support. My client plans on utilizing it to fight all 3 of the unprecedented cases against him." Now, we did reach out to Agnifilo separately to confirm that, but she hasn't gotten back to us yet. Mangione, he will be back in court for a hearing on February 21st. Now, that will be for his New York State murder case. Now, the state case will be adjudicated first, meaning it will have to go through a jury trial and get a verdict before he can then face federal charges. That federal case will come next, and it's arguably the more severe of the 2 due to the death penalty option. He's also facing a weapons charges case out of Altoona, Pennsylvania, stemming from his arrest. Now, Blake, the Department of Justice hasn't said whether or not they're actually going to seek the death penalty yet, but it is on the table. And in order to prepare for that, his defense team has hired an expert to have in their back pocket should that happen.
Thank you to News Nation's Caitlin Becker. And that's it for today's Daily Debrief. I'm Julia Manchester. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hill's YouTube channel. And come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.